The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS, and brought to you by Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. Get yours at bigbarker.com/Ricky. Adam Ksebe, the official realtor of the process, 302-864-8643. Kornblau & Kornblau, the official law firm of the process, and Stateside Urban Craft Vodka, the official sponsor of the Corner 3 newsletter with Zoe, statesidevodka.com. On today's episode, a stunning turn of events as former Philadelphia 76ers head coach and process legend Brett Brown has decided to do his first media availability since leaving the Sixers with the Ricky. Brett sat with us for almost an hour, and in his charming accent, told several amazing stories. Mike, I think you'd agree it was a pretty special one. So we will talk about that, as well as the Napa wine trip. Did some version of it just happen? And that's about it. I did mention Stateside Urban Craft Vodka. The official drink of the summer is the Surfside iced tea and vodka from Stateside, which is only 100 calories, only 3 carbs, no carbonation, just the right amount of sweetness. Imagine sitting on the beach in the 92-degree weather with a Surfside out of the cooler. It's amazing stuff. Much better than any competitor, and no carbonation. It's not supposed to have carbonation because it's iced tea. If you would like some, you could visit your local beer distributor, or if you're in New Jersey or something, you can buy it at a grocery store. Otherwise, statesidevodka.com. You got to be 21. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who will write a character into one of his shows who has an Australian, New England, and Hoagie accent at some point. That is one, Mike Levin.
I wouldn't have minded hearing a little bit more Hoagie from Brett. Well,
especially he's been here a decade.
Yeah.
Do you think his son has any Hoagie?
We should have asked him. Yes, I do. And we should have asked him to try to do an impression. It might have gotten him in big trouble. He might have done a really bad job, but
yeah. So we have that coming up. It's coming up in, right after we talk here about the Meek Mill Napa trip. It is a great interview. He was very kind during it. If you notice my mic in the beginning, of course, of all fucking episodes, my mic is a little off in the beginning. It fixes itself within 7 minutes or so when Mike tells me that there's something wrong with my mic. So if you hear me coughing
and I caught it. So fuck you, CJ.
Yes, you caught it. You didn't even need CJ. I caught it. Yeah. So if you hear me coughing, I'm not being rude. I thought I was muting myself, and I was not, in any case. So we wake up this morning to do the Brett Brown interview here on July 4th, and there is a few videos that are scattered all over our timelines, and people have tagged us in them and asked us if this counts as the Napa trip. It is a video of a Meek Mill white party performance somewhere in the Hamptons.
Is it at Michael Rubin's house?
I could very well be. Yeah, I don't know if it is. I haven't done any investigating. I assume it's possible it was at Michael Rubin's house. I mean, he probably has Meek Mill perform at his house every couple of weeks or so. I imagine that is like part of their deal, right? I imagine he pays them for a Meek Mill concert occasionally at home. When you're that rich, you might as well.
And determines that everyone needs to be wearing white. It's a very Kyle Richards move for all my Real Housewives of Beverly Hills fans out there.
So of course, Meek Mill is performing. Joel Embiid is there. PJ Tucker is there. James Harden is there. They all seem to be enjoying each other's company.
Tyrese Maxey also there.
Tyrese Maxey there. Tobias may be reading somewhere. Tobias not at the party, which is
like it,
no, does not seem like it. So, Mike, I ask you, does this count the same way a Napa trip would count?
I think it's as close as we're gonna get, and I think that that's nice. But because there were other teams, players there, it's not necessarily like a bonding trip. Although maybe the fact that there's like other people to interact with is less intense than a solo team trip would be. People wouldn't, people had to want to come to this, right? Rather than they were like compelled or forced to. And if this is the Michael Rubin tampering era, Donovan Mitchell was there taking pictures with Embiid and Maxey. So like,
oh, was he?
Yeah, Zoe just posted a picture from it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's tamper. I love people all wearing white to a party. In the Hamptons.
Have you ever been to a white party?
No, I haven't. I love Michael Rubin hosting all these people there and just, getting all these famous people together to do his tampering. And whatever works for me. We are not tampering cops. I will refuse. I don't report him. All these pictures are Photoshop. And if Donovan Mitchell signs here for the league minimum, then, that's just what his market was. And I think it's fair and fine.
I'm waiting to find out what the X person shouldn't have been doing X activity during this time. Like when I saw Embiid jumping up and down, it reminded me of when he performed at the Wells Fargo Center when his knee hurt or whatever.
Yes, that was a Meek Mill concert at the Wells Fargo Center when a mere, I think, day after they announced that he was out for the rest of the season with a torn meniscus. Which another thing we could have asked Brett Brown about. We get into a lot of stuff with Brett of some interesting times, and he brings some of himself. But you really could go on forever with all the weird shit that happened when during that era, and still today.
Yeah. And the only other thing lurking around that continues to lurk around, and I think I know your answer to this question, but I will ask it anyway. The Eric Gordon thing continues to lurk. It's a little more complicated now, given that Danny Green is traded. That was a salary that would have been helpful in the Eric Gordon thing. I know what my answer is, and my answer is predictable in this. But if next season you could pick one of two players to be on the Sixers to improve your chance of winning a championship next season, would that player be Eric Gordon or Tobias Harris?
Remains to be seen. I think it could go either way. I think it is my vote would be the stability of Tobias, probably. The fact that he's been here, the fact that there's like continuity there. There's adding a new player in that way after already adding so many new ones, which I support and like. I think runs the risk of things going awry, and it might just be one too many Rockets. might just be one too many. I also like the idea of running it with this team this year, seeing how it goes with Harden. We're still waiting on the Harden contract. Sixers Adam is out there saying that he thinks it's going to be a 1+1. He's on an island doing that, which would be interesting. But you run it out this year with the team as is, and then Tobias is an expiring contract next year, and that's a massive number for an expiring contract where they could trade that to match salary for somebody and make it add some picks in there and some young guys in there, and then that's the trade. Rather than Tobias right now is still seen as a lot of places as a negative asset. On the court, he's just not. He's just a lot of the time very helpful, and. So I would go Tobias, especially because PJ Tucker is like standstill shooter. Dan House kind of standstill shooter. D'Anthony Melton can run the point sometimes, but not exactly the guy you want to give him the ball to. I think Tobias is the third guy right now after Maxey and Harden who like you can give him the ball and be like, hey, go run pick and roll. Hey, go like get us a bucket on your own kind of thing. Obviously Embiid, but not as much from the perimeter. So Eric Gordon, I like the volume shooting. I like the distance, but I think like what it's going to take to make that trade happen and feel like we're sending out a negative asset in the picture. I would prefer to hold on to Tobias and see what that expiring can get you next year.
I would rather have Eric Gordon. The only pause that I'm given, this is you can earmuffs as an availability pause. Is like he is.
Oh no.
Well, no. I mean, he is like 34 or something, and you stack too many guys that are, who are on the back nine on the same roster, and you're bound to But I just think his skill set would help the Sixers more than Harris's does. For all of the improvements that Harris made, I will take the 32-foot threes and the willingness. And he's not a bad shot creator, Eric Gordon. Like, he's not the same guy he was, but he was like a 30-point scorer at one point in his career. He was a pretty dynamic scorer. Reminds me of Ray Allen a lot.
I would have reminds you of Ray Allen.
No, just in that he went from career arc, went from dynamic scorer to spot up shooter. Eric Gordon has done the same. That's all.
Fair.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing is that Eric Gordon's making like 19 or so per year. Tobias is in 37, so they'd have to add a ton of salary to get to that number. And Houston's rosters, that would be like a lot of like $2-3 million guys you're stacking up to get there. I just don't know if you can get there. I would have been more in favor of it prior to the PJ Tucker signing, or even prior to like using the Danny Green contract and the D'Anthony Melton thing. But it's just a little harder to do at this point. The other thing that we haven't discussed prior to this was there's still like I don't believe them, but wisps of a Kyrie trade. And that is something that theoretically would be with, more in line match for match with the Tobias thing. But I totally don't want it. I also don't see it happen. I mean, the idea of if it's like, even say it's 1-for-1, because there's absolutely 0% chance I'm trading Maxey in a Kyrie trade. But say it's like 1-for-1 for Tobias. Like, what is the even roster? What's the look? I mean, is Maxey coming off the bench? Is Kyrie coming off the bench just as a?
Maxey comes off the bench. He's
not going to be there that much. But Kyrie's not going to play. Like, he's played so little. He took off for his birthday. Like, he's not the guy that we really want here. And obviously, him and Harden already have had Harden deciding to ask for a trade out of Houston when Kyrie was saging the court and just decided this isn't my guy. I just don't think it's a good idea. But I get why people are enticed by the talent. I think he's funny, but I don't think that I'm interested.
I think he's 100% going to the Lakers, and everything else is just noise to fuck with the Lakers, honestly.
But going to the Lakers for what?
They could send one pick and they send Westbrook and maybe, the forever traded Taylor Horton Tucker. This is one of those things where it was like when I thought it was for sure that LeBron was going to the Lakers, this just feels like it's definitely going to happen. That he's going to go to the Lakers. I don't.
Interesting. I would much rather,
because he'll play for the Lakers too, right? Who is going to trade for him and feel like he's actually
right? I think that's why if I'm Brooklyn, unless Josiah is just like incredibly bitter and wants to get the fuck out of here, the idea of a Westbrook and Ben Simmons roster is upsetting and nauseating in some ways. But I would, if I'm them, hold on to Kyrie and be like, you already sat out 1 year, sit out again then, and or decide to play, and we'll trade you somewhere during the season, or once you've like recuperated your value and proven that like you're still this guy or whatever. I would much rather see them. We talked about KD issues or KD trades previously, but I would love a Kevin Durant for Anthony Davis trade for everybody involved. I think that would be much better. I think Durant, Westbrook in LA would be very funny. With LeBron, Durant, LeBron on the same team would be funny. And also they just fit better. Like, the Lakers have three guys right now, and three main guys, and the best shooter among them is LeBron. And so like, you don't want LeBron, no one's spacing the floor for LeBron if he's the best shooter there. So I just never think this team is well assembled. Anthony Davis is not a guy that I'm a fan of, but people still hold him highly, and you could at least convince yourself in Brooklyn, if you go KD for AD, then it's Kyrie, Ben, AD makes some amount of sense also. So I think that would just be like the cooler trade that fits in and is fun on both sides. But for disgusting purposes, for absolute like putrid ugliness, Yeah, Kyrie for Westbrook and Taylor Horton-Tucker. Sure.
Before we get to Brett, the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm looking at the futures for DraftKings. So Doncic is the favorite for MVP at plus 475. And I actually think that is a good buy there because I think people are dying to give it to Doncic. They have been, and I feel like they're going to get a shot this year. Embiid is plus 550, right behind Doncic, which I thought was a little short for him, honestly, given where it was last year. He's at plus 550, Giannis at plus 750. So I don't know. I thought that was a little surprising. And the rookie of the year, Paolo is at plus 300, Jabari Smith at plus 350, Jaden Ivey at plus 450, and Chet Holmgren at plus 475. Do you have any sort of like long shot, dark horse rookie of the year pick?
Yeah, keep going. Keep reading.
Okay. Keegan Murray is plus 900. Benedict Mathurin is plus 1200. Shaden Sharp plus 1200. Dyson Daniels plus 1500. Ochai Agbaji at plus 2000. Johnny Davis at plus 2000. Ousmane Deng 2500. Mark Williams 2500. Jalen Williams with an E plus 2500. AJ Griffin plus 2500. Jalen Duren plus 3000.
Jalen Duren could be an interesting one. That could be an interesting one.
Yeah.
If you're like a long shot situation, if he gets a starting job there and just averages like 14 and 13 and on like a sneaky like get into the play-in type of Pistons team, that could be interesting. But it would require Jaden Ivey to have kind of a slightly bad year. But Ivey would be my other pick for rookie of the year there.
DraftKings Sportsbook, of course, NBA futures, same game parlays, all that. Offering right now new customers a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's right, $1,000. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code RTRS. Make your first deposit and get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Promo code RTRS only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. Without any further ado, our conversation with one Brett Brown.
Look who it is.
Wow.
Do you hear us okay?
I can. What's up?
Oh, man. It's so good to see your face. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, let me ask you guys this.
Yeah.
Because I don't normally give a rat's ass where I sit. You know, we're not going to have like a picture of Pop behind me as I'm talking.
No.
You got the kitchen. You got like my spoon and my spatula.
It's beautiful. This is an inside look at the spatula.
Yeah. This is fine. I don't want you to. This is you.
I can move to the right. Tell me about light. I'm more concerned about light.
No, I can see your face fine. Yeah. Sometimes when there's light in the back, it darks you out, but not in this case.
How are you, boys?
We're good. How are you?
Oh, good, man.
Nice and rested, and had a good few years, and back out of the woods. I got a very strong, actually my left, I got a very strong fly fishing arm.
Oh, that's nice.
Well,
you couldn't look more relaxed.
Yeah.
Really, it's impossible to look. I've never seen a man this relaxed and tan.
Well, it's hard. I got a Jeep. Well, first thing I did is I bought myself a great Jeep. I've been a Jeep guy my whole life, so I've been driving around. I like the the soft top, easy to take down, and I can do it at a stop sign. So that's my tan. I got my Jeep down driving to Maine, and in the woods, some of those rays get through Arcadia, good boy.
Yeah.
Through the pine needles and finds my face.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Acadia State Park was incredible.
Crazy. Yeah.
Well, we're recording, so we're just gonna go and
have at it.
All right. So I guess the most important question is, how much have you missed us over the last 2 years?
You two people, I have missed a lot. I would be lying if I could extend that same comment to others. I will tell you this: it's like purposefully I went underground, and our days in Philadelphia, it took its toll. And as I'm driving in my Jeep, pick a number, 50 times back and forth from Philly to Portland, Maine, you can't help but, reflect on things, and good and the bad. And there were literally times I'd have to pull over and say, what was I thinking? if you had to do it again, what would you do? Then there are times, you're proud of, whatever Covington's growth or TJ McConnell or Jeremy or whatever it is. But to see you two, in the media, because I have been underground in the woods, this is kind of my debut coming out. Thank you for having me. I thought you might have forgotten about me.
No, we could never. It's such a seminal figure. I think, like, as we've been doing the podcast for 9 years, and as this goes on, some people come and go, but there are some figures that are forever, and you are one of the cemented forever ones. Like you were there in the beginning and so important during all. We could never forget you. You kidding? Come on.
Well, I mean, I was lucky to have seen a lot, right? We all kind of saw a lot and experienced good days, bad days, but we navigated as a city. You all, the passionate Sixer fans, we all for sure navigated a lot.
You mentioned that you were in the woods the past couple of years. What have you been doing? How much Sixers have you been watching, or none at all? Which would be admirable.
Because that's a big question, Michael. Right? That's a very open question. So I'll try to be quick. I have 85-year-old parents. And when I look back at my days, if I'm honest, we all would agree that my time was up in Philadelphia when it was up, and I felt it. And the city felt it, Joel, the players felt it. Time was up. And, it's just part of life as a coach. And it's in the light of day, I can admit that. I felt it, if I'm really honest, you're always walking on the head of a pin for a while. But when I look back on it all, multiple like Olympic Games, multiple world championships, my role with the Australians. Like we would lose to like OKC in the Western Conference semifinals or beat them when I was with Pop. And I'd be on a plane to, Guangdong, China, the next day, or Perth, Australia, on the Indian Ocean, coaching the Australian national team. And I say that for context, like I moved, like there was no breathing room. You just go, 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 go. And I loved it. Like it's how I'm wired. It's what I think. But when you leave it, you realize, and this will bleed into your question, Michael, of okay, now what? And what it did is I had a chance to see 85-year-old parents, the spectacularly is still alive, and the real coach of the Brown family still alive. And going back and forth to Portland, I bought a lot in Portland and blew it up, renovated that, saw mom and dad. I got a few friends that, people that you'd really call your friends still in Portland, Maine, all in like the seafood fishing type industry, and did that one. Two, I dove in a massive way with my son. He's a junior at Lower Merion High School when I was told that was it. He was a sophomore, and so to spend quality, like real few years helping him with basketball and the Lower Merion coaching staff with Greg Donna and Kevin Grugan in that group, allowing me to come in, and you walk carefully. So to see him go to, UPenn and be a Quaker and Wharton and all that, he's got one more year of high school. That's good. And then lastly, just the overall family time that we all kind of experienced from COVID, and then it just slid into, this time for me. And so, that primarily occupied my time. I did not pay much attention to the Sixers, if I'm honest.
Congrats.
I would watch, obviously, and I still care. People can't hear that. I still care. Like, how can you not? I love watching the growth of Joel Embiid and, his maturity as a human being, and he's a father. Like that's been a great sight to see. Watching other things has been difficult to watch, but in general, I've lived the way I wanted to, and come out of this few years, I think, fresh and ready to go.
You mentioned, as when you were with Australia and then San Antonio and then with the Sixers, it's just sort of like nonstop. That's how you're built and that's how you're wired. At what point and how do you make the decision to just, after the Sixers thing is over, just say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. And how hard was the adjustment going from, so hard all the time to the way that you've lived for the last couple of years?
Yeah. Extraordinarily difficult. Really, really hard. We all go back to like our personalities, our DNA, what makes us go. I love competition, and I love, the pieces of a team. I love that environment of a team. I always said that I'd rather be a shitty coach than a shitty leader. And, I ended up not being the leader, if I'm truthful, that I needed to be, trying to connect the dots with Jimmy and Ben and Joel. It still haunts me. And so when, you have some things like that swirling around, then, as I said, it's truthful. You like almost pull over. It's on your shoulders so much. And you say, well, you had back-to-back 50-win seasons, the first time in 30 years. You lost in the Eastern Conference semifinals with the ball hovering on the rim 4 times. You saw, multiple coaches go be head coaches. Not Ime at that stage, but Monty and Billy and Lloyd Pierce. And then you see, all-stars with Joel and Ben, or TJ getting paid and all that. And so to remove like those things that give you joy, and then, they're snatched away, it definitely takes a bite of you. And so it was extraordinarily difficult for a while, not tormenting. It was never, anything that tormenting, but it really did, affect how you now live your life, given how you had lived it. I mean, shoot, for 35 plus years as a basketball coach.
Are you the competition? Are you just like racing your kids at any point, and first to the mailbox wins? Like, is there anything like what are you doing to satiate that?
It's stuff like that, and it gets physical on that route to the mailbox. Like, I'm not afraid to like hit.
Yeah, you got to use your body.
Just try to get to that envelope quicker.
That's right.
Hey, Michael, the stuff that my son and I did, because that is what was my vehicle. From a competitive side, I worked him out a ton. I got a chance to see him play a ton. I'd guard him and I'd whack the hell out of him, and, like make him feel you. If you're really going to go buy somebody, can you take a hit? And so the competitive stuff was shifted different places. And he certainly received the brunt of a lot of it.
You mentioned your son, Sam, because he's grown up in Philadelphia as well. And we remember when you came in and he was just such a kid, and he was practicing his free throws with Nerlens when Nerlens missed his first season. Now that Sam's a junior commit to UPenn, Nerlens is a career 65% foul shooter. Do you regret letting Sam practice free throws with such a mediocre foul shooter?
If I knew what I know now, I would have had him teach it. Like, he can shoot. There's anybody that's a basketball coach that has a child, especially the way the world works now. And I knew this the second he was born. It's like, he can do a bunch of things, but that kid will shoot. He will shoot. And the game's not getting, shrunk. It's getting extended. So 3-point shots, Steph Curry, 4-point shots. I still think there's going to be a 4-point shot before my days are up.
This is a 2-part question, but I want to ask it separately. The first part is, what is the moment and the reasoning for deciding to come back?
Because I wasn't going to, and it's a few things. One will sound quite pitiful, but it's true. I'll give you the big ones. Feeling like I had done what I needed to do to help steer my son, figure out what college is good for him. And I tell you what, boys, when you dig in and the only people I've ever coached are people that I've paid. I've only coached pros. And when you start studying, the true dynamics of college basketball, and, then the rules of COVID, and then the nils that are coming in and how it all works, and people are in and out and transferring, like, it scared me. Like, you better get this right. I don't want my son being a gypsy. You want to pick a spot that you respect the coach, you respect the program. And so when Penn came through and Steve Donahue, who I've known for a long time and just incredibly fond of him because I respect him, it's a no-brainer. You can go 20 minutes down the street and play at the Palestra, which ironically that was my last game in the NCAA tournament, the playing game with Patino when we lost to LaSalle. And so to think like that's in your backyard, you're going to play at the Palestra because it's true Spike. He's a Philly kid. He's been raised here. And so that helped feel like I'd done what I needed to do there. I had a 17-year-old dog that made every one of those trips to Maine in my Jeep. And we end up having to put him down, and he's a good friend. Amazing. You can love something so much that doesn't speak. And so he and I, the road trips that we made, great mate, good little buddy, okay, time to move. Parents are on track. And then the last one is my wife simply wanted me out of the house. So, the combination of some humble things and then, how about the wives though? Like all of a sudden coaches get thrown back in on their doorstep. They live just fine. And I have a rock star of a wife that kind of runs the planet. So she helped, maybe it's time we move along, and I'm thrilled to be back with Pop. That's probably a separate story, but all of that reasoning behind, forget if I'm with Pop or whatever, but just the general reasoning, why are you getting back in it? Those few things come most to my mind.
The follow-up to that is, and I'm sure you heard a lot of it, the criticisms of you as a head coach, and there were similar things said about you and Sam. They will never do their prospective jobs in the league again because of what happened here, and so on and so forth. And I want to be clear that I'm not saying this. I'm just asking about the perception and the feeling of coming back, but coming back as an assistant after you've had not only head coach, but at times during it that an internally powerful head coach. Is it difficult to take a step where you're going backward, at least in that respect?
Yeah, maybe for somebody else other than Pop. But even that, if I'm honest, because I'm just quick response to your question, wouldn't be good enough. Like I want to coach again. Like I miss the competition. I love coaching basketball. It's what I know best. I feel like, or I hope I still have stuff to offer. I think that I'll come back sort of smarter, better, stronger. I don't know what order, but I believe that I will. And so, to re-enter and say, to use your point, Spike, to come back like at the Wells Fargo Center when the Spurs play the Sixers, I'll be fine looking around. I'm sure there's going to be some feeling that I'm not feeling now. But I truly, am proud of the large majority of my days in Philly. I bump into people, since I haven't been the coach, on the street often, that, some will bite you as you would expect. And it's part of the thing that I'm going to end up living here in Philly. Like I'm going to San Antonio. My kid's in school. Anna's here. Daughter's working. My daughter Laura's at Temple Dental. This is our home. And so, there's a passion that the Browns have about Philadelphia. I'm proud of most of the things that we did. And so no, Spike, like to come back to Philly, to sit next to Pop and, try to reload, re-enter the game, reconnect with Pop. I think for me, it was a no-brainer. Like it's the segue, the runway to try to re-enter this stuff seemed quite appropriate.
Have you considered the similarities in that you're taking a job where they've just traded a young all-star point guard for a ton of picks with the ostensible look of, we're going to take a step back and rebuild? Do you feel that? Does Pop feel that? Is that why he brought you on to guide him through that sort of thing?
I don't think so. I think that, in fact, I know so. I think it ended up being a byproduct of where the team evolved to. Pop and I had been talking for a while. And, this wasn't something that came out of left field. We have been talking for a while. And so, that kind of thing was already in place. And then, the decision of, and use DeJounte as the obvious example for them to try to, recalibrate and rebuild and figure out how to design their team. That came later. And, I do think, to your point, Michael, that the lessons that we all learned going through those first few years, I do feel like I have opinions that have been experienced. My opinions have been, driven out of the experiences that we all had here. And I do think I can help, steer some of the things along. I love development. I really, really look forward to getting back in a gym with the players, on the court with the players, helping the players. I get flashbacks of just how we did with Jeremy and TJ and Cov and Dario, all that. That you went through it with me, and so that excites me. That excites me a lot, and I think all of those things come to mind.
You mentioned, thinking back about your time in Philadelphia and what you would have done differently. But instead of that, are there a couple of specific moments on or off court that stick out to you as, wow, what a great one? Like, are there a couple of those that when you think back about in your time in Philadelphia that will stick out as the most positive and emotional for you?
I mean, probably and I wouldn't anoint a game, probably like the situation of the series that was most profile positive, a real trophy, like look where we are, look where we were, and now look where we are, was the Miami series. We won that series 4-1. We had just come off, we had, as we said earlier, we had 50 plus wins back-to-back seasons. That hadn't been done for 30 years. We had the best home record in the NBA for a 4 or 5 year stretch, so there were great joys and memories along the way, for sure. Even in our earlier days, when you're trying to get through, we don't want to have 9 wins. We want 10 wins, right? Remember those days? Yeah.
Yeah, we remember those days.
Yeah, I know you do.
Yeah.
And so I think to answer your question, Spike, I would say the series, winning the Miami series and then moving on to the second round, for JJ and that group, I love coaching those guys. That probably was, the series, the basketball games, that series that most stand out.
You've already mentioned the Kawhi shot. What other, first of all, have you had any actual nightmares about that? And second, are there other moments that you wake up in like a cold sweat thinking like, shit, that should have gone differently, or I should have made a different decision or something?
The one that upsets me the most is, if you want to get hoops and specific, there is.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, here we go. Playing the Celtics at home, believe it was game 4, end of game play. We ended up switching. I mean, this is coach speak, but we ended up just going what I call 1 through 4 is red. You always put the decision on side out of bounds versus need play goes kind of like this to me. You make a decision of who's on the ball. You want Boban, you want big, you want somebody, pressuring, you want to bring somebody back, a lag. Do you want them taking away the corner, and shading that way, or taking away the top, whatever. And then the people behind, we switch. A lot of people, do that. And I thought that the Celtics, Brad did a great job of running a play, baiting the switch, throwing the lob, Al Horford with the bucket, and pretty much ended the game. And from a coach speak standpoint, what I learned from the next year is let's just keep Joe at home, switch 1 through 3 behind it, put whoever we want on the ball. So that one still haunts me. That one still haunts me, and it's like, probably there are others that could have like sent us further, but that particular one still haunts me.
We take a break from our conversation with Brett Brown to talk about Big Barker therapeutic dog beds, or as Brett Brown would say, Big Baka. Do you want to try that?
I don't.
I should have asked him to do it. My dog is recovering. He's doing fine, recovering from some minor surgery. He recovers on his big Barker dog bed. There are many dog beds on the market or that portray themselves as dog beds, and they look comfortable, but are they supportive? Or do they improve your dog's health? Big Barker is the only one that does. Big Barker, only one engineered by experts to support your dog's joints, the only one proven by Penn Vet to do so. You can see the difference. You can feel the difference. It is a higher quality product. Your job as a dog parent is to give that dog the best, most healthy life you can. And you can't do it without giving them a Big Barker dog bed. Go to bigbarker.com/Ricky. That's where you get the Big Barker dog bed with 2 processed pup patches. You take a photo of your dog on the bed, you send it to us, and we put them in the processed pup gallery. I said Big Barker. It was originally designed with huge dogs in mind. They have Barker Juniors for tiny dogs, all the way up to dogs that are 200 pounds. The extra large Big Barker. Rebel sleeps on a large. He's about 40 pounds. So you can tell by looking, and they'll give you an estimate of sort of which one you want to do. I'm telling you, over 80% of dogs develop arthritis as they age. You want to ease that pain with the Big Barker dog bed. 10-year warranty. Foam doesn't flatten or they replace it for free. 1 year at-home trial. Try it for a full year. If you're not happy with it, if your dog doesn't like it, they'll give you a full refund and pay for the shipping. Handmade in the USA. Big Barker dog beds. Back to Brett.
We could do this for 100 years. There is just one specific moment now that I'm going back that I wanted to get your perspective on, because I'm sure you've answered the question. I just don't remember the answer. The confetti game. So I was sitting in I don't usually sit there. My season tickets were the first row of the second level, but I was with WIP at the time, and I was in their suite, which was, in between the first and the second level and in the corner. And I was a far corner from that shot. And from where I was sitting, it seemed quite obvious that he was on the line. And I know that sounds crazy to feel that way, but I was shocked when the confetti went off. I'm curious as to your memories of that.
Yeah, I can tell you vividly. As you're watching the confetti, did you happen to see me leave the court?
No, did you?
I thought, because it's right in front of me. And what's interesting, fellas, is on the way out, I told Marco, this has to be a 3. It has to be a 3 because of the angle of the screen. I can get you to that floor spot. And, you get into coach speak and you better sidestep. We're not backstepping out of bounds. We're sliding down. Work your quarter. We do it all the time. The great shooters, look at those people that navigate corners. They're not backstep, guys. They're sidestep, and they really understand space. And so that play enabled, Bellinelli to get that angle, and I knew it, and we talked about it. And so, the play happens, and I'm right there. I am, and the shot goes up, and it goes in. I'm thinking, this is it, because literally 15 seconds, 20 seconds earlier, this has to be a 3. And we talk about it afterwards. He gives me. He actually reached out from Italy one time, not so long ago, and I love him. He's good people, and he had a hell of a year with us. He got a good contract after us. Yeah. But you see that, then all of a sudden, to your point, the confetti's coming down. You think it's a walk-off 3, and here we go. So I mean, that's somebody snatching your heart back out, and the confetti didn't help.
That's really funny. I didn't realize that you left the court and then to have to come back on and coach overtime.
And Michael, it was humiliating. To leave the court and then to have to limp back on the floor wasn't a proud moment.
Oh man.
One thing I say about the job that you did here, as I've been candidly, I've been what's the word I'm looking for? An aggressive defender of your time here. I am seen as. But one thing that I feel like people don't have yet is the context of, coaching the team for as long as you did, which is a long time, even not going through what you went through. 7 years with one team is a long time. But to be the same coach, to go through that legendary, controversial, polarizing rebuild, to be the same coach, to be there when they're contenders, and then with the changes in leadership above you to go through all of that. So I often say about your time here that that history will look favorably upon it
because the context will become more obvious, and that no one has ever done that sort of job that you did. Like there's no comparison. In your time away, have you been able to step back and gain context and be able to look at the entire thing and really have a sort of a come to Jesus moment as to like the amount of time you were here and what you were able to accomplish?
I have, but it took a while. You know, that was probably on my 16th trip to Maine that you have some epiphany. You're like, okay, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it took a while. I remember when I took the job, because you guys remember how late I was hired. I mean, think about that. I got my job, I think August the 13th. Imagine forming a staff and built like that in the light of day. That's a tough ask.
People were pissed why it took too long.
Yeah, well, maybe the coach was too. You know, trying, you know, like I'm speaking to my coaching buddies. They're all off to, you know, Laguna Beach or up in Colorado with their coaching retreat. Like the whole staff's up there figuring out. And I go in and there's 2 people in the whole building, let alone a staff. And so that whole thing is exciting for sure. When I interviewed for the job, Jeff Van Gundy, who is a friend of mine, and I reached out to a bunch of people, like, what do you think? What would you do? He said something to me, and it's like, you know, you have to sort of pivot away and have a paradigm shift to find new joy, because winning is not going to be one of them at the start. Like if your basis of joy is winning, well, you're not going to be a very happy man in these first few years. I think those types of things too, then, you know, as I said earlier, the growth of our players, I'm proud of that. The growth of our coaches, I'm proud of that. Did we kick it over the line? No, we did not. But, you know, I was an NBA coach contract-wise 9 years. Think of that. It's a long time. In 7 years, I survived. We went through, count them, 4 GMs in my 7 years. You know, we went through, I think it's 100 and, you know, so there's a large number of players. You guys could do the math. There was a stage in my first 3 years, I think I had like 29 point guards. You know, really, you know, they came in and out. They'd come into the locker room. I'd shake their hand and say, okay, cool. Ish Smith, nice to meet you. You're starting. You know, JaVale McGee. Like, think of the people that came through. Yeah. So I do, Spike. I look back and as time has passed, I do find joy. I'm sorry we couldn't see it through to the end for a championship, which is the bottom line. I do feel like, you know, we left some decent things behind, and I'm proud to watch Joel especially evolve personally and on the court as he has. I'm very fond of him.
You mentioned 4 GMs. You were kind of one of them for a moment there. Do you put interim GM on the resume just to add it as a special skill?
I could say no, but what I really want to say is hell no. You know, that think about it's nothing that I wanted. Like, that's not who I am. I have no desire to be a general manager. And because of Brian Colangelo's situation, you know, things moved, and I had just signed a new contract, and you were really just trying to help the organization. It's not like you got an extra nickel for doing it. It was a lot of, you know, time and responsibility, and I got in late. You know, I how much time before the draft I don't really remember, but you guys remember. There was no. And so, you know, you count on the guys that have been doing this. You trusted the guys that help you, advise you on drafts. And at the end of the day, it's on me. I'm not pushing any responsibility aside on that. That is one of my haunting moments. You know, the Mikal Bridges thing. You know, anybody that's in that room, that was in that room, knows exactly what happened on that night. And we don't need to get into that. And I own it because I'm, you know, this like, you know, anointed for a moment GM, and we go out and you got to announce that to the city of Philadelphia. And, you know, I'm sad for Zaire, like that from a human perspective, it hasn't played out, but that's one of the regrets. And the GM tag, and I don't even think I've included myself in that, Michael. Maybe I was, maybe it was for, but no, it is not something I aspire to do, nor did I back when, and it certainly will not make its way to the resume.
You mentioned like owning the Zaire and the Bridges thing. It is funny. I will talk in a general way about, and I'm not talking about you in this case, who will own when there are group decisions, the timing of who is owning what and when they're owning it. Because I will tell you that there are certain people who will own that who owned that Bridges thing a lot more a few years ago than they own it today. Is what I would say. That time certainly changes who made final calls, certainly, or at least what people say publicly about it.
And you know what? I laugh with my assistants and the people that I coached often. I'm a great note taker. Like if you went into my office, you would see every single game that I ever coached with post-game and pre-game notes for all of my days. And so my note-taking ability, I think, is decent. The stories we could tell, the books we could write, if truths, weren't as punishing, as at times they could be, myself included. So we move on. I don't share dirty laundry, and you're excited to just move on to the next stage of your life. And I do know bits and pieces what's going on with Philadelphia as it sits. I love the PJ Tucker signing. That's a monster. And truly, Philadelphia is my home, and I wish the city and I wish 76ers well.
How do you think about, like, now that you've had your own sort of coaching tree and you're going back to the Pop coaching tree, which is obviously incredibly vast, Budenholzer winning a championship, Becky Hammond taking a job with the Las Vegas Aces, doing a great job over there, among many others. Like, how do you think about that in perspective of like what you've done and what you're contributing to?
Ask that again.
You're included in Pop's coaching tree, but also you have your own coaching tree that is having that success. And so how do you reconcile just both of those things? How you think about that? You're a part of one thing, and then you are the thing for a lot of guys that are having success out there.
Yeah. I'm the son of a coach, as people know. I saw my father do this my whole life. Like, you help people. He said years ago, the more you help others, the more you help yourself. And so when I see, the coaches that I've tried to help, and I truly love it, like, you're always feeling a responsibility, and you're reminded of what was done for you. Pop did it for me. I hope I've done it for others to circle back now and reconnect with Pop and like now be a part of that again. That is a tremendous joy. I think that as you get older, Michael, I'm 61 years old. And so I've been coaching my whole life, and I coached overseas. And so my world, basketball wise, is not NBA just, like, it's global. I've coached all over the world. And through that, like, you establish even more ability to touch somebody, to help somebody, and move a young coach along. It's one of the joys of coaching. It's one of the things that I missed being away from it. And I'd be really surprised if I gave you a different answer if you and I did an interview, a year from now.
One final question from me is, I saw when the Spurs posted the image of you welcoming you, there was Brett Brown in a suit. And actually, a quick aside, I went to rent a tux once for a wedding, and the guy who was renting it to me, apparently you had donated suits to a charity where for people who are going to interview for jobs who can't afford suits, and you had left a bunch of Spurs play cards or in the pocket of them, and he told you about it, and you let him keep the cards. And all around, it's such a good story. Is that true? Right?
It is.
Yeah. So I saw the cards. I wish I still had pictures. I took pictures of them, but so I saw the picture of you in a suit, and I had realized that though you coached in the bubble, there's been this sea change in that coaches are out there wearing like polos and quarter zips and all this. And the last time, your full season, you were wearing a suit. Have you thought about your sideline attire for next season?
You would not believe the eerie timing of what you have just asked. So I am having my Jeep being shipped to San Antonio, Texas. And in that Jeep, I'm going to put some stuff and off I go. And so as I'm passing my suits this morning, they're not coming. And they are not making the Jeep. And yes, like I've thought about it a lot, and internationally, like you coached lots of times in whatever the club shirt was and so on. And I feel when I speak to my coaching buddies, it is a massive plus in relation to comfort and, dry cleaning bills and all that. So I look forward to just sort of chilling out on the sideline with a new attire. It suits me fine.
You got to get so sweaty in a suit, and you're around guys that are sweaty. It doesn't seem like a pleasant thing.
Hassle. It's a legitimate hassle all the time, packing your suit, doing your tie, and you got to look the way we should look. And it's not my style. I wasn't required one time to put on a suit in my Jeep. And so I hope to continue wearing whatever the league is asking us to wear now.
It's a little silly, the idea that they're ever with suits. What are we doing? We're in a business meeting? What is this? We're playing basketball.
Yeah, and the league went bananas, and Rick Carlisle and the Coaches Association, they were great, like on helping suit sponsors and this and that. But I'd be shocked if one coach, wanted to go back to that. And I think to you guys' point, like the bubble kickstarted it all.
The Rice to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by two sponsors who have the initials AK. Mike, could you identify who those sponsors are?
Adam Ksebe,
the official realtor of the process,
and Chicago Bulls GM Arturas Karnisovas.
Correct.
Who is going to trade for Matisse Thybulle because what's his name is there? Eversley. No, it's Adam Ksebe and Adam Kornblau.
Let's first talk about Ksebe. Adam Ksebe is the official realtor of the process. As you know, the last year or two of buying a home has become more challenging. When you buy a home, you need a realtor by your side who is always available. You need a realtor by your side who knows the market. You need a realtor by your side who's going to know about houses, maybe before they pop up there. Or if you want to sell your house, you need a realtor who really knows what they're doing. Adam Ksebe, Ksebe, the official realtor of the process. He is the master of the Delaware beaches. He has Delaware beaches on lock. A lot of people, now that they can work remotely, even part-time, have moved to further away from cities, maybe move down the shore. If you're going to do that, Delaware beach is way over Jersey. You're going to get a better deal on the house, and you're going to pay far, far, far less in property taxes.
And you're closer to the Blue Coats. And if we've talked about the Sixers Summer League team, the Blue Coats are going to be very good this year.
Oh, are they?
Very good. Keep an eye out.
His team, Adam Kasebe's team, based out of Long and Foster in Bethany Beach, has all of Delaware on lock, not just the beaches, has all of Maryland on lock. And as well, if you need a home in PA or New Jersey or New York or any other state, you reach out to Ksebe and he will interview, he's done this numerous times, did it for me, interview realtors and find the right realtor for you. That way you can trust that somebody who knows what they're doing found the right person for you. So your first step, if you're buying or selling a home, is Adam Ksebe, Ksebe, 302-864-8643. That is his cell. You could text him right now, or you can call him, 302-864-8643, or email adam@processrealtor.com. That is Adam Ksebe, the official realtor of the process. And now Adam Kornblau. Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process. What is the connection between you and Kornblau? Was there a camp connection?
I believe he was
a counselor?
The camp counselor when I was a CIT, which means counselor in training.
Right.
So I was like half around, half flirting with other 13-year-old girls.
Did you maybe have a friendly professional sort of maybe rivalry with Kornblau? Is it possible you just don't remember?
No. He was the head counselor. He was like my boss, I guess. But he also, I think he was a very relaxed guy. It's very bizarre that, because I remember when we met him and I heard his name, but it was from so long ago, there was always like something there. So I wish I could go back and look and see what we were doing, what kind of hijinks we were getting up to when he was probably 21 and I was 13. I'm sure we were having a blast together. Just two peas in a pod.
Kornblau and Kornblau have been a sponsor of the pod for years and years now, the premier boutique personal injury law firm in the Delaware Valley. His parents started it like 4 decades ago, And now that his dad has passed on, he runs Adam runs the law firm with his mom. They have a passion for this. You can see it when you talk to him. And as somebody who's gone through a personal injury lawsuit, they are long, they are detailed, they can be frustrating. There are a lot of questions you have to answer that you may not know the answer to. So if you are going to go through one of those, you need somebody like Adam Kornblau, because he is one of our community. He was very calm and camp years and years ago, and that is the sort of demeanor you want. But he wants to get you the very best result. And they have some of the best medical malpractice result in all of southeastern PA. You don't even need to come to one of his offices. They have them all over the place, but he can come to you. And as many of our listeners have found out, even if they wanted legal advice and it's not personal injury, you reach out to Kornblau. He's going to take care of you. He is your one-stop shop for law. 215-576-7200. Ask for Adam. You know, a lot of those other personal injury law firms you hear of, they're really referral services. It's not really a law firm. When you ask for the person that you're hearing from in the ad, you're not going to get them. But you call 215-576-7200, ask for Adam, you're going to get Kornblau. Or email kornblau@kornblauandkornblau.com, KORNBLAU. Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process. Now, back to our conversation with Brett Brown. Do you, if you, you had mentioned us forgetting about you, you should know that there are a lot of different eras of teams and fans and all special in their own way. This one is different from before and will be different from after. And I think the people who listen to this podcast and us, we all feel that. And in your place in that is forever. Just understand that even the people who were critical of you or not, like, you are one of them, one of the truly ship of Theseus necessary pieces for when you tell this story of this. So you all, unfortunately for you, you're always a Sixer. So I know you said you'll be a Philadelphian, but you don't get to escape ever being a Sixer. Danny Granger's a Sixer, and he never even played. So you're always a Sixer, but you won't, you will never be forgotten, and you'll always be considered part of the sports culture in Philadelphia. So you should never think twice about that. That should come with the tribute video when the Spurs come to town, because if Jared Bayless got one, then you get one. So I'm just saying that. Yeah, you're kidding.
Just shots of you coaching, drawing up plays, pointing, yelling at a ref. I want all of it. I want to see that video.
Well, as long as people, aren't allowed to throw things at the screen, to ruin the pregame stuff, I'm all in.
Do you have a final? We appreciate your time. I know I asked you for 10 minutes and we're on minute 41.
And I'm good. You listen,
okay,
fellas, I'm good for as long as you guys need me, but fire away.
Do you have if you were to give everyone I know this is a strange question, but what would your message to Sixers fans in Philadelphia be, now that it is amazing you haven't said anything since you left the Sixers? What would your sort of your statement be to them?
Yeah, I'll answer it. I'll answer it in a roundabout way and then finish it up. So all my years I would run before our games. I went to the Wells Fargo Center early. I'd bunker in. I'd get out. I ran the park. It could be raining, snowing, sleeting. It didn't matter. I was doing it. And it sort of got me going. And as I would do that early days, I would be thinking the first few years, who are the people in the front row? Who are the people that bought these tickets, to experience the pain of this rebuild? And I'm thinking, with Scott O'Neill, let's have a front row dinner. Invite the highest paying sponsors. Let's bring them to a nice dinner. I'll do a video presentation. We'll have some fun. We'll move them around and do a little clinic. They all put on the shirt and ties and sneakers. And it grew. And so we could take care of the people, in the front row, people that supported the club in hard times. Then it's well, who are the people in the stands? They're seeing 10 wins. And they come, they yell at me, they yell at Jakar Sampson. They're Philly fans. They're in it. They don't care. Obviously they care, but it's 10 wins, 54 wins, whatever. What can we do for them? I would speak to the season ticket holders before every game. 6 o'clock, Mike Preston would bring me out. There'd be 30 season ticket holders before every game I coached for 5 years. And it's like, go ahead. Why aren't you, what about Jaleel? Whatever, good job, coach. Whatever it was, I took it. And I loved it, and I felt like I could say what I wanted to say better than anybody, and I could control the message and also listen to them. You heard. And so when you started getting into, the front row dinners and the season tickets, and then it's like, how do I help basketball? How do I help the coaches? So we started the coach the coaches thing. I had 64 coaches at Lower Merion High School my first year and ended up with 1,250 sort of at, the Camden facility so you could coach the coaches. And I feel like, the message is more about, we really tried to figure out a way to get this done. We tried to do it not where it was just you win or you lose. It was deeper. Like, how do you help the city? How do you help the coaches, the fans, whatever? How do you do that? And we did it for a little while. I think we kind of held stuff together for a while. Me, speaking about whatever it is, Jaleel or problems, I end up taking the mic a lot, and dealing with the media a lot. But that wasn't Sam throwing me out on a bus. Like, he wasn't throwing me under the bus. I just did it because I knew exactly what I wanted to say. And I knew how I wanted to say it. And so, that's not a specific thing, Spike. It's kind of a universal, holistic thing. But that's what I hope to have achieved. And, you ask, what are you proud of? Those types of things I'm proud of.
It was really just like a podcast that you could just have hosted a podcast as the Sixers head coach answering for all the problems with the organization going on. So
I didn't mind it, there I was. I should have done it. I didn't need to pass the mic. I knew what I wanted to say, and I knew what the truth was.
Yeah.
There was a story that somebody told me about. It was before an Eagles game, and obviously my father is an enormous pain in the ass for coaches and general managers. That's sort of like his job. And there was a story that somebody.
I actually like your dad, by the way.
I'm glad you do.
I'm Howard and I. We're good.
Somebody told me about, there was a time where he was particularly hard on you, whether it was fairly or unfair. I don't remember why, but there was a time on the field before an Eagles game where you saw him, and apparently off air and offline, you gave it to him. You gave it to him pretty good at some point, and I'm glad that happened.
And I'll tell you the whole story. So,
oh, great.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. How much time do we have?
We're
no, I mean, I can get through. Okay.
We're just hanging.
You guys can boot me off. It's a holiday. Boot me off.
No. This is great.
So the story goes is years and years ago, I went in the same era to college with Chip when Chip Kelly went to school. So he's at UNH. I'm at Boston University. He's roommates with my closest friend, who was a tight end on the University of New Hampshire football team. So I knew Chip, years ago. So you coming to Philadelphia after him and going to the Eagles game and getting tickets was never a problem. So I brought my son to one of the games. And at that stage, Sam was, I don't know, in 5th grade or whatever. And so I'm sitting there and your dad kind of said that I had lied. I did something. He goes, that's not true. Kind of, he's a liar. He might even have said that. So I keep Mike Preston, my media guy, next to me, and I say, listen, all I care about, I don't need to know everything. You be the judgment of what do I need to know? I don't need to know everything. If there's something you think I should know, tell me and I'll figure out how to handle it. So he came up to me and said, Howard, he's saying you lied about something. So I'm sitting on the sideline at the Eagles game, pregame, watching those big men fly around and with my son. And I said to Sam Brown, I said, watch this. So I can see Howard coming up, from 20 feet, 15, and he's coming up to say hello. And I flipped that thing and I said, that is bullshit. Like, this is what you said. No, bye. Well, this is the truth. That was not a lie. And I gave him a bite. He moved on. And I feel like from that moment, he will remember, there was more of a fist bump than there was anything in my latter days after that.
He can take it, he dishes it, but he can take it. He'll take it back.
And that's part of his shtick. Like, he wants to pick a fight. Like, any press conference I'm ever in, It's like, anybody got a question? Oh no, Howard's got the first question. Surprise, surprise. And and it's not an easy question. So there's no shock and awe as it relates to Howard Eskin with me, since I learned a little bit about it.
I was doing an interview with, I work with a national sports network, CBS Sports Radio, and Maggie Gray and Andrew Perloff host a show, and they had me on to talk about some Sixers thing. And they asked me about my father, who had recently gotten into some back and forth with Doc Rivers. And I mentioned that, now you really only see the person on the dais. You don't see who's asking the question. But I said I could see in Doc's eyes, and I can always see in a coach or a GM's eyes whether my father is about to ask a question, because there is a sullen sort of, oh no, here it comes, life that drains out of their eyes just before you hear the voice. And that's how I knew that Doc Rivers is about to be asked a question by my father.
I mean, that's part of the whole. It's interesting sometimes when I step back, like I'm not getting hit and having to deal with the media. I would have to go do 450 interviews a year when I was a head coach. So you step out of it, and the role of the media has changed. Like there's a lot of shock and awe. It's okay to pick a fight and keep the audience alive. And it seems like your dad figured that out years ago.
Yeah, and just because I hadn't thought of it, do you still, because people will want to know, do you talk to Sam Hinkie at all?
I do. Yeah, no, I do. In fact, we exchanged texts a few days ago. I'm a fan. This is what I do know is he's good people. He had a vision of how to blow it up, rebuild, choose whatever words you want. I think that if you're really honest, like the whole rebuild thing went way longer than any of us ever expected, primarily through naviculars and injury and all that stuff. And so it just was prolonged. And he's a good man. It didn't play out for him. I get what people think in relation to his design of the team or vision of this program. But, with a few better decisions, and isn't this life, maybe you're looking at him like we all look at Sam Presti. Look at the treasure trove of picks like he's built up, and I'll be curious to watch him evolve. And so Sam hired me. I respect Sam Hinkie. I am a friend of Sam Hinkie's, and I appreciate the opportunity he gave me.
Did you find your relationship with him like collaborative while you were working together? Because there is the accusation of his that he was not that way,
No, I don't think that. I think, he was very private with others, how he wanted to, draft or trade or whatever. Like he held things very, very close to his chest. But that's who he is, and maybe that's exactly what he should be. And so, no, I think that the partnership was just fine. Like I said what I thought, he'd say what he thought, and we moved on. I never felt like my voice was not heard.
I'll give you the opportunity to get excited about some of the Spurs young guys. I'm a big Devin Vassell fan myself. Josh Primo, a lot of upside. Talk about what you're most excited when you're like getting in there and getting going, getting these guys better.
I think just learning. Like I think coming into an environment where I really don't know a lot. I'll acquire information, and I think that's a good thing for me to come in sort of opinionless. I get it a little bit, but really come in with a blank slate and make my own judgment of what I think and how I can help Pop. The bottom line is how do you help the players and how do you help Pop? It's exciting time that they're in. There is no doubt about it, Michael, that there's a lot of, young athletes, talent that can be polished up. I think that I know they're further along than we were. Like my first few years with Philadelphia, they're probably 3 years ahead of what, you saw 2 years ahead of that. And so I just think like the youth, the direction of the program, I'm very aware of the draft pick, Sochin, the ability to work with Pop. I mean, how about him, for him to recalibrate and participate in this phase and stage of the Spurs after he's been so used to what he's been used to. I mean, that's a statement of Greg Popovich as well. Like, he'll do whatever it takes to like move the program forward. And so I'll walk into a gym. I'm gonna see him in Vegas on Monday. I'll watch him play, and I think there's a team dinner that night, and then I'm actually going to be going to San Antonio to try to find a place to live shortly thereafter.
The first time we ever had you on, and this will actually be the finale here. The first time we ever had you on, it was before you came to the live show, which we actually talked about on our last episode, which was hilarious. You coming out to Stone Cold Steve Austin music, and it was incredible. But
hey, I want to interrupt because then you can hold your thought. So when we come up, we buy the audience a beer. So it was 4,000 beer. How many beers was it?
It was a lot of beers.
a lot of beers, and so I'm hearing. 4 more years, 4 more. And we turn to each other like, are they screaming they want 4 more beers, 4 more beers? And we never delivered on the 4 beers. I don't know if anybody complained about that. That was a fun night.
Yeah. Well, you actually bought beers. We did a road trip. You bought beers. You bought beers there. You bought your share of beers, I would say.
The road trip. Good.
Yeah. Yeah. But the very first episode, it was on the phone. And it was very early on in your tenure and our tenure. And the very end of it, we did this thing, and I don't remember exactly what it was. It was pretty gross, though. It was called a Jigsaw, which is where we basically ask you a horrible would you rather question. And
I remember that. Yes, I do.
Yeah, you participated. So I feel like
I participated.
Yes, but you did participate.
I did.
Always a good sport.
I shouldn't have.
So I will give you the opportunity here to bookend it. And if I will ask the question just simply because I have to if you want to not partake, you don't have to give the answer, but I have to be able to ask you the question. I feel like it is poetic. Okay. Both of these options are for the rest of your life, and there's no way around them. Option number 1, the rest of your life, every time you breathe in the air as if you were in a car and somebody has passed awful gas. That's what you're smelling at all times. You're making an apple pie, you're still smelling horrible fart smell. That's option 1. Option 2 is every pair of shoes, every pair of sneakers you wear for the remainder of your life is 1/2 size too small. No matter what you do, even if you go to, find some shoes that are sized differently, they will be 1/2 size too small. What are you choosing for the rest of your life?
I mean, I'm going with the 1/2 size too small shoe, but it's not a dramatic type of environment to me. I'll put on the 1/2 size shoes if I have to choose one and live my life.
It depends on whose fart it is. I think that it would depend in that world.
This is where the conversation ends, boys.
That's right. There you go. Brett, thank you so much, man.
Yeah. Good luck, man.
Listen, thank you. You guys are great. Good luck, and hit me when you need to.
Yeah, of course. We'll see you when you're back. See you, man.
See you, man. Thanks.
There he goes.
Shuts it.
I
love that.
Well, Brett was absolutely awesome, as you would expect. And wait, hang on one second. Kick from studio. All right, there you go. Well, that was it. I didn't expect Brett to be able to, Mike and I were talking before our most recent podcast that I had put the ask in for Brett, and I did not expect him to actually do it. When he said yes, he has not done one media thing since he left. When he said yes, I was stunned. So a surprise from Brett. What a good dude.
The best. Really fun to see him be as relaxed as he seems.
Yep.
Which he was always in control of what he was saying when he was the coach, but it seemed like it was very thoughtful always. But this is thoughtful in a different way, where he's just he's a little more shooting from the hip, a little more relaxed, significantly more tan, just very relaxed. It's good to see his cabinets. What a guy! Happy that he's seems like he's got a great family, got a good job coming up, and he's Brett. He's a sweet guy, and he did buy a lot of beers. So
he did. All right, we'll talk to you next time. Are you down with TTP?
Yeah, lick face.